What is going on, Rotogrinders? Dean here. It's Dean 7904 if you want to get all technical on me. It's actually 1:30 on the East Coast. 1:30. We're talking baseball. Good times for sure. Oh, I'll do the West Coast for y'all as well. I'll do the math. 11:30 on the West Coast. 12:30. Wait, hold on. No, it's 10:30. This is why I didn't do West Coast. Blender. I'm out of. It's 10:30.
You get this right like every day. Like you do the time zones for no reason. Let me add, like you do.
No, it's important.
Like, why? People that are in their own
important.
time zones know what time it is, but they don't even have to tell them that.
It makes it official. I feel. I think it makes.
I didn't realize it's 10:30 on the West Coast. I gotta call my stockbroker. I mean, like, what am I going to need that for?
Well, because we want to say good morning to the West Coast. What's up, LA and Seattle? How are things doing out there? So 10:30 on the West Coast, and of course Tennessee time. Shout out Pulp Fiction. It's 12:30 in Tennessee. That's where Nashville. That's the home office for RG for Rotogrinders. So yeah, I was gonna say flagship show. No, this is not the flagship show. This is just kind of we're just gonna chill. It's a hump day, Wednesday, talking some afternoon baseball. We may talk some of the night slate as well. If you guys are premium members, Dave Potts, Jesus Goods, you guys know him, two-time millionaire winner. He's gonna be following us on Crunch Time along with Kevin Roth, chief meteorologist. His day was made a little bit easier, Kevin Roth, that is, because just before the show, we got the White Sox and Cleveland canceled. I'm going to go ahead and drop this weather link in chat for the people. What up, chat? Feel free to like, subscribe, turn on the notifications. We do appreciate that. It helps keep the proverbial lights on. Split slate today. We were talking before the show, Blender. Not to I don't know, be negative. But the contest today kind of suck, right? I mean, maybe is it all at the top as far as the night slate? Is it all for basketball or? I
think the problem today is obviously they geared it more towards the main slate, which is 6 o'clock. But the problem is that we don't have late games today. Like we had games start at 1 o'clock Eastern time, and most people work. I mean, they're not degenerates like me and you. That this is what we do. Waking up at noon. I didn't have to do the pregame show today because we expected this to be a 1 o'clock slate, and then they turned it into whatever it is today. But I mean, most people have jobs, so they're not necessarily. At least that's what DraftKings probably thinks. That how many people are going to fill a 3 o'clock slate, and then the 6 o'clock slate because they're commuting home. I don't know. Is anyone commuting home anymore with what's going on the past year? But still, a lot of people are at work, and they're not going to be, do the normal thing. If you're at work during lock is you have to go to the bathroom, right? You have to have a nice 5 to 10 minute bathroom break. It always seems to happen at, 6:57 or whatever time it is, 12:56. Johnson always has to go to the bathroom. What is he doing in there? He's making his lineups.
Have you ever had like a 9 to 5? I feel like you haven't.
I have. I did until I was like maybe 23.
Okay.
Like I haven't had one in 19 years.
Yeah, we talked on a previous podcast about all your interesting jobs, and like none of them were 9 to 5 as far as I recall. They were at different times. And
I worked on Wall Street. I worked as a web developer, and I had to wear nice clothing and stuff, and I hated it. That's why I stopped doing it.
Yeah, and that was Wall Street. That's in New York. That was in your back in New York
That
City.
was during the .com era where they just threw around money. As long as you knew anything about computers, you got a job.
Were you also in the punk scene at the same time?
Yeah.
So you're like a stockbroker by day and a punker at night?
Well, web developer. I wasn't a stockbroker, but I worked on the stock trading sites.
It's pretty interesting. And I assume that thought process is applicable to DFS, yes?
I guess so. I mean, you learn about the stock market because you have to, obviously people are going to trade on the sites that you're building. Like you have to know what a limit order is. You have to do it for all the error checking. So there's some analytics some thought process there, I guess.
All right, early slate we're going to talk about. We got 5 games going down. 3:10 is the first pitch in Colorado. Houston, we have a core slate, obviously, which we'll dig into. I did see a note that Miles Straw had a COVID ramifications, or I guess a setback from COVID. And so he's
That's
not
the
in the
last
lineup
straw for him.
What's that?
That's the last straw for him.
Oh, Miles Straw. But so there's a person named Chas McCormick batting leadoff today for Houston. And I got to be honest, I got to fire up the old Fangraphs on him because I don't think I'm aware of his existence. That's Chaz with an S, not a Z, if you're scoring at home.
I thought it was Chad.
Oh, I assume it's Chaz.
It's Chaz. It's Chad. Okay. I guess the creative player in whatever video game. We're living in a simulation, and the creative player just messed up. Sometimes the simulation gets messed up. So no offense to the McCormick family. Never heard of this guy before, literally 10 minutes ago.
I'm sure they're lovely. I'm going to fire up and see what we kind of are looking at here on the fly. Chaz McCormick. Again, the guy's batting leadoff in Coors Field. He's 3.1K on DK. We'll talk about the pitchers in a second, obviously. How much is he on FanDuel? Do you know, by chance?
Well,
Chaz McCormick?
Probably 2K, but I mean, 3K. They planned on, FanDuel planned on having Chaz in the lineup, I guess.
I think they have like a Coors limit on players where nobody can be, never mind. Daza's 2.5K. So much for that theory. I feel like that was a thing once. And, every once in a while, FanDuel's on top of it. But yeah, Chaz McCormick about to dig into that for sure. Hey, give me your screenshot as far as this slate before we dig into the pictures, before we dig into it. Not a lot going on. Not many games, obviously. We talked about losing one with the Chicago game being rained out. That's a night game. I don't know. I've done content for both slates and I forget which ones are which ones.
I think, Dean, this is it's a 5-game slate and Coors is on it.
And Max Scherzer switching.
Right. And also the Coors game is weather-wise a question. Because we have Roth's report here. He listed as orange, says the game is a big question mark. Not sure if they're going to try to play it, and I'm not sure if they would be successful in completing the game if they did try it. So we don't even know what's going on there. And if there's we have to figure out, you have to figure out.
It's a group effort. We're this
Coors
together.
is going to be, if there was no weather issue, Coors would be the chalk game. Okay. It has the highest total. It's only a 10 total. It's 55 degrees it's 38 degrees with the wind blowing in. So it's like, this is a low total Coors game, but how are people going to react? How is the field going to react to potential weather concerns? It's only a 5-game slate. So, if you don't play Coors, what are you going to play? But the issue comes in, like, you tell me that everyone's running away from Coors because of the weather.
Yeah.
Maybe I want to play more of it. Or is it the type of thing where it projects as the best game? It's going to be jammed in, and you play 0 of it and hope it gets postponed like 3 innings into the game or something.
So I mentioned that thought process as far as the slate tonight with Toronto and Boston, and I think it's just worth touching on. And I'm sure you have a similar thought. I imagine so. No half measures. No one-offs in games that are potentially going to be rained out or postponed. Either nobody or stack it up, right?
Right. And in a lineup. Now, if you're playing multiple lineups, so for instance, if that Toronto, I think it's more likely that this Coors games it plays and it's fine. But that like Toronto Boston game later today, I think they're going to end up postponing it before luck anyway.
Probably.
But in any of those types of situations, like typically the pitchers you could just X out. Like don't if there's enough pitchers on the slate, just play another pitcher. But when it comes to the batters, like either stack the game, if you want to take a shot, play 4 guys, play 3 guys, play a combination, but don't go into lineup HQ. Don't go into I love it, Dean, in lineup HQ now. We have the new function only in stacks, the OIS check mark. And what that does.
To that. Because I haven't used it yet. I hand build most of my lineups.
It's great. It's great, Dean. It's with me and Dave Potts, Bean Cheese. Have been asking about this for like 3 years. And what it does, you can set up groups to do this, but it's a pain in the ass. You have to set up like 8 different groups in order to make it happen. So what it does is it tells lineup HQ that like if I set my stacks as 5-3 or 5X or whatever it is, 4, 3, 1, 5, whatever. If you click the checkbox on that player, it will only use them in those quick stacks. So if you're setting up 5 threes on DraftKings and you click on Luis Rengifo and you don't want a Luis Rengifo one-off in your lineup, just click on only in stacks on his name, and there you go. Then he'll never show up in anything other than a stack. Now this becomes useful for 3 reasons. Just quickly, just go through because I'm showcasing a functionality. One, that you don't want to play some garbage hitter. You don't want Nicky Lopez one-offs for the Royals, right? You typically don't want that because they most likely not going to put up 26 points by themselves because they barely do anything. So you don't play really chalky one-offs. Like let's say you didn't want Mike Trout. 37% own Mike Trout in as a one-off. So now it decreases the ownership of your lineups. That's not just jamming him in.
What if your stack is a low owned stack? Then can you do it?
Yeah, if you could do it, then that's fine. But when you say only in stacks for Mike Trout, that means he could appear in Angel stacks. All your Angels, fine, but just not as a one-off in other stacks. But this is also useful for these, rain possible games where you're like, maybe I'm building 50 lineups and I want to take a shot on this game in 5 lineups. So it's like, I want to play 10% of Toronto tonight, for instance. But you don't want to play the one-offs because if the game doesn't play, you have all these zeros intermixed in all your lineups. But if you want to take a shot on Toronto in some stacks, you just go to Toronto and all 9 players, just click the OIS button on all 9 of them. So they're only in stacks. So now you could build your 5-man, 5X type lineups. And you'll get, if you set Toronto to 10%, you'll get 5 Toronto stacks. And then the rest of your 45 other lineups has no Toronto players. You don't have to worry about that anymore. So I think if you're a premium member, which you can click the link in the description, get $10 off your first month. I think it's a very useful functionality that means that you don't have to screw around with player groups or anything. You could just easily hey, I don't want this guy as a one-off in a million different lineups. Just click on the box and rebuild again, and you're good.
I'll talk pictures in a second, but just since you kind of brought it up, just 5 games. We have all the lineups for the record, with the exception of San Diego. Milwaukee just came out as well. So your strategy tonight or today, again, we don't really know as far as whether we're assuming right now that everything's a go and until otherwise noted. But there's not a lot of appealing spots outside of cores, and even the cores lineups aren't great. It's a 10 total in cores. You don't see very often, and that's with Gomber and Urquidy, not exactly great arms. Just these lineups aren't spectacular. Houston's lineup, of course, is weakened with the absence of Alvarez and Altuve and the likes of McCormick leading off. Do you say maybe it's not going to be a stack? Maybe I'm not doing 5-3. I'm not going to have 5 and 3 and maybe you consider other routes to build lineups, or your way of building lineups is the way it is, no matter what the slate's telling you.
It depends on the slate size. The smaller the slate, the less that you need to concern yourself about building super type stacks. On DraftKings, I'm building 5 lineups on DraftKings today for the mid stakes because we mentioned before the contest kind of sucked for these early slates on both sites. So I'm hand building 5 lineups. Most likely they're not going to be 5-mans. Most likely they're going to be 4-3-1s.
Okay.
Because there's only 10 teams on the slate. There may only be 8 teams on the slate if something happens in cores. And the likelihood, the larger the slate, the more likely one of the teams goes off for 14 runs. So we now have a 1 out of 10 shot of having the highest score being something versus 1 out of 26 different teams. So one of these teams may not score enough for a 5-man stack to pay off. 4-man stack, sure. Because 5-man stack, you need to hit every single one, depending on the ownership of the lineup. On large slates, I'm much more likely to 5-man stack on DraftKings. You can still make some 4-3-1s. Same for FanDuel. On large slates, I'm more likely to play 4-4. Just strictly take 2 teams, put them together. That's it. On smaller slates, more likely to do 4-3-1s or 3-3-2s. something like that. Because if the highest scoring team is like 6 runs, most likely the 5-man stack doesn't pay off. Hey, the 4-man stack may not even pay off. So it's really all determinant on slate size. It doesn't mean you can't play 5-man stacks on a 5-game slate. Maybe I end up making one lineup with a 5-game stack, with a 5-man stack, but it's not something you must do. Even on large slates, you don't have to do 5. You can do 4-3-1s on large slates also, but lean more towards the correlation on large slates than on smaller slates.
Some questions rolling in chat. Devin, our fabulous multitasking producer, he's going to be compiling those questions. He may or may not be joining the show. If nothing else, he'll be throwing those questions our way. We'll be entertaining him. A couple good questions. Somebody asking about the OIS tool when it comes to catchers. And well, let's just knock that one out. Well, why not? Since I brought it up. Is that something you do with catchers? The only in stacks? Like everybody says, well, you're supposed to play your catcher in a stack. Is that, I assume you take advantage of that feature when it comes to your catchers?
If I'm playing on DraftKings, usually.
Yeah.
FanDuel, a lot of times you don't even have to worry about the catchers because they don't project well enough because you fill a catcher first base spot and you have a utility spot. So, I mean, I guess so. I mean, you can do it, but most of the time the catchers and stacks are like the crappy catchers. I don't mind Will Smith or Gary Sanchez or Real Muto, those types of guys, right? Mercedes now, apparently he's a Hall of Famer. He's hitting the
he's ripped. He's got a Hall of Fame body.
Right. Like those types of guys as one-offs, I don't mind. But like if I'm playing, Martin Maldonado, if I'm playing Danny Jansen,
yeah,
typically I'm not playing them as one-offs. So yeah, it's useful for that.
All right, Max Schurzer, everybody else as far as the pitchers taking the bump tonight. How much are you prioritizing Schurzer? I think on DK, especially where you can get cheaper SP2, it's not that hard to get him and a reasonable amount of bats. Is he somebody you're sort of taking a stand on, locking him in? Are you fading him because he's going to be super popular? What are you doing with Mad Max tonight?
I mean, he's clearly the top pitcher on the slate on both sides.
Yeah.
I mean, in my 5 lineups, most likely he'll be in all 5 of them. But that's primarily due to the strategy that I'm not going to have much of cores. So like, I don't mind having Schurzer as my I just don't mind him in all my lineups. If I'm going to fade cores, I'm not going to have a chalky stack. I mean, we're going to see on this slate that the chalk build is going to be something with Schurzer, cores plus some angels. Like that's going to be the chalk build. So getting off one of those 3 things, like either you could choose 2 of them, right? Maybe you play Schurzer and the angels and don't play cores. Maybe you play angels and cores but don't play Schurzer. Maybe you play Schurzer and cores, but don't play angels, and you don't play Trout and Ohtani or something like that. So you have to choose 2 of them. I'm choosing to fade cores because that's typically what I do anyway. Typically, cores tends to be overowned. But there's no doubt about it that he's the top. I mean, he's going to be the most owned pitcher. He's 65% projected owned on DraftKings. Compared to every other pitcher on this slate has question marks. So Schurzer doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, Dinelson Lamet's making his debut tonight. They baby this guy when he's pitching as is, right? So I like Lamet. I think he's got good stuff. Milwaukee's a rough team, obviously, but you're begging for 5 innings. You're begging for him to throw 85 pitches. You're begging for efficiency, which can happen. I don't know how likely it is. But he's got to be in the pool, I suppose.
I don't think I would play him on FanDuel though.
He's what 9.5 on DK. How much is he on FanDuel?
He's 9K on FanDuel. Remember, their pricing is softer for the bats.
No QS.
Right. Well, that's the problem. That's the whole thing with the quality start. It's like Schurzer is 2,000 more, and I'm not sure if Lamet pitches past the 5th inning. I don't know on his first start.
Probably not.
Right. So on DraftKings, 5 innings could get you the win. Fine, get you the extra 4 points. But you want the quality start points on and you're only playing 1 pitcher on FanDuel. So to me, I think Lamet is going to go less owned, obviously, than Schurzer. But I mean, I think rightfully so. I mean, I look at the bat projections. I mean, Schurzer projects for more than 10 full points over Lamet. So for 9K, yeah, you're getting different, I guess. But you can get different in different way. I think playing Maeda or playing Montes, one of the pitchers in the Minnesota-Oakland game.
Yeah.
I think that at least you're dealing with pitchers that's like, okay, I could see these guys going 7 innings if needed.
Who do you prefer amongst the two?
I prefer here's my thoughts on this. Remember, I'm a slave to Derek Carty, right? I bow to the altar of the bat. Based on the bat projections, Montes and the Twins have the highest variance spot on the slate. You could always tell this by going to the projections, like the pitching, look at the pitching projections and then look at the hitting projections. Now, Montes in the bat rates out as the 3rd highest point per dollar pitcher on the slate for his price at 7,600 on DraftKings. And when it comes to ceiling point per dollar on the slate, the Twins rank the highest. So Montes is the 3rd highest point per dollar pitcher. It's like, okay, he's in a good spot. He projects well. Yeah, but also the Twins project extremely well for ceiling, which means we have this really wide range of outcomes.
Which you embrace.
Right, which is great for GPPs, but it's the type of thing where I think Montes is a good pitching play, but I also think stacking the Twins against them is also maybe outside of why is Byron Buxton 6,100?
He's awesome, man. I'm just glad.
Yeah, but why is he 6,100? Like, he shouldn't be that. I mean, come on.
Probably not. No, he's
the highest price. Is he the highest price player on this? Yes, he's 100 more than Mike Trout.
Yeah, well,
makes him lower owned, but of course, I mean, why is he 6,100?
By the way, Weather Edge actually likes that game, surprisingly, in a big sample, too. 248 games. The wind is blowing out to center at 10 miles per hour, 65 degrees as far as the temperature. We see an increase of 13% in homers and 4.8% as far as runs in similar games of a sample size of 248.
Well, that's where the variance comes in. A lot of times, the reason you see this type of the pitcher projects well as the hitters. We saw that the other night with Bundy and the Rangers.
A home run to fly ball rate. That's all it is. That's all it comes down to.
Right. It comes down to if the ball gets hit in the air and hard, this pitcher could give up 4 home runs, but if it hits on the ground, he pitches 6 innings and 9 strikeouts. And like these strikeout fly ball type of pitchers or good weather conditions like 10 miles an hour, wind blowing out, even though it's in Oakland. It's what if the ball is hit on the ground. We see this in Wrigley. People always tilt when we get one of these Wrigley wind games, right? Wind's blowing out 17 miles an hour to center field at Wrigley.
Yeah.
And the projections just like love everyone. And it's like, yeah, but they still have to hit the ball in the air.
Yeah.
Right. So you're watching the game and it's like, why? Like it's the 4th inning and it's only 1-1. You're like, why has there been no home runs? And you see that it's been like 90% ground balls. It's like, it just means it's high variance. It means that we've now increased the range of outcomes to make it higher, but also make it lower. So I take a look at this situation. I think the Twins are not going to be owned on this slate, not going to be much owned on this slate. I don't even think Montes may be owned somewhat as an SP2 on DraftKings, but we only have him projected owned for 9% on DraftKings. We have Lamet higher, we have Quintana higher, we have Maeda higher. Like I think both are. I think I may build my 5 lineups. I may build like 2 Twins lineups and then 3 Montes lineups, and just like out of my 5 lineups, like one of them, I'm hoping one of them gets there. Like do something like that because I think they're both in good spots.
Just kind of running it down, looking at Pit IQ. Montas since 2019, 25% K rate, pretty solid. Walk rate's pretty good at 7.2% as well. The opposing side, there are some Ks. It's backloaded in that lineup. Of course, Nelly Cruz, 27%. That's a good number. Of course, when he's not Kang, he's banging the ball pretty hard. K will strike out a good bit, as will Rooker and Jeffers, 23.3% collectively. And if we flip it, the other side, Maeda, like a lot of power on that Minnesota side. Maeda, you prefer him versus righties as opposed to lefties. His K rate versus righties, 34%, just 23% versus lefties, which is okay, but not spectacular, obviously. And we're looking at Oakland can only get so left-handed, but they do have with Jed Lowry, Olsen, Moreland. and Brown. So they do have 4 lefties in there today for what it's worth. They do strike out a good bit. They also walk a good bit, but Maeda, pretty good control, just 7.1%. So Quintana, speak to that. He is super cheap. The matchup is good. He's been a disaster so far this year. In Cheese's article, I think he was talking about the BABIP. Yeah. So the BABIP in a small sample, just 5 innings, right? He's been getting shellacked. I think it's 2 starts too. It's been rough. But 556 batting average on balls in play. That's obviously, I mean, that's not sustainable. Just been unlucky. His ERA is over 16. The Sierra's at 5.14, which still isn't great, but it shows that he's been a bit unlucky. Left on base percentage is probably low as well, I assume. Yeah, 35%. I mean, anybody who's getting on is scoring. So Quintana as a cheapie, and he gets you Schurzer, and he gets you the best of both worlds if you want to make that work. And it's a nice matchup against Texas. But again, he's been a disaster, but unlucky in theory.
Yeah, but look at this Texas lineup. I mean,
terrible.
Right. I mean, that's exactly the point. He's 6,800 on DraftKings. If this was a larger slate, we may not be, prioritizing him. But I mean, I think if I'm playing an SB2 on the slate, like it's Schurzer, Quintana. The Rangers are over, other than maybe Adolis Garcia, who, along with Yerman Mercedes, who's apparently now a Hall of Famer too. He seems to go 3 hits, 2 home runs, whatever, every day. But like the bottom of this lineup, I mean, when Charlie Culberson is batting 6th in your lineup, I mean, you have a pretty weak lineup. And these guys are expensive. Like you would think a lot of times my strategy is to stack against the chalk SB2. I'm not sure how chalk Quintana is going to be. Schurzer is. But people will play other second starting pitchers on DraftKings. But like Kiner Falefa is 4,500, Solak's 48, Gallo's 43, Lowe is 46, Culberson is 42, Jonah Heim is 4,300. Like,
jeez.
Like just from a price perspective, like the Rangers don't need point per dollar or awful. They'll be barely owned even on a 5-game slate. But I think I'm more inclined, like I said, you have to choose one of these directions. All I'm doing is giving you choices. If you wanted to play Coors and Schurzer, maybe, I mean, I don't know if you could afford the Rangers, and then try to stack, a 3-man against Quintana to try to get you to leverage that way. Or if you want to, if Maeda is going to be somewhat owned, playing the A's in that type of lineup. But like I said before, I'm going under on Coors. So I don't mind playing Quintana. I think Schurzer Quintana is the best combination of pitchers on DraftKings. You don't have to deal with Quintana on FanDuel. Like the thing about FanDuel, I mean, he's 5,500 on FanDuel. You can't even build a lineup. I mean, like if you put in Quintana, I don't even know if you could spend all your salary on a lineup anyway. So like, is there a point to that? I mean, I would love
play Maeda at 7.9 if you really want to save some salary.
But even then, no, Quintana in the bat projects higher than Maeda, and he's only 5,500. So like, if you wanted to play Quintana in the lineup, I mean, I'm doing this on lineup HQ. It's like, if you play Quintana, you could play Crone.
Go ahead and say it.
Korea.
The tagline. I thought you were gonna say it.
Not the whole lineup, but basically you're playing You're playing like half. Most of your lineup is over 4,000, and you're still leaving 100 on the table, even if you play like the optimal with Quintana in it. It's like anyone that plays Quintana in their lineup on FanDuel in a large field GPP, almost, unless you're going to leave money on the table, their lineups are all going to look the same because if you're going to try to spend all your money, that there's only one way to do it. So I don't think he's necessary on FanDuel. I think you just plug in, to me, you plug in Schurzer and you get different elsewhere.
Urquidy, Fultonevich, Carlos Martinez, Gomber, Hauser. We touched on any of those guys?
Yeah. I mean, obviously you can play whoever you want, but I mean, to me, I would rank, I'm more likely, like with Fultonevich, I'm more likely to play the Angels against him than play him. Really, on DraftKings, my pitching pool is Quintana, Schurzer, Montes, Maeda. I think Lamet is interesting, but I don't think I'm going to get killed by him. I think if people play him at 9,500, I just don't feel I get killed by him. I don't. This Milwaukee lineup is horrible now without Yelich and guys out of the lineup.
Have they dropped a pinch count on him by chance? Is there something out there? Or did he have a, I meant to kind of look for that, but I didn't find one. But the history of Lamet, even when he's healthy, they don't let him go very deep. Yeah. So I wouldn't think, or if he had a bullpen session, what is
I
the
think,
bat?
I think his floor is good. Like the thing that I'm saying is I think his floor is, I think he could give 18 points. I don't think I have a problem with 18 to 20 points. He gets 7 strikeouts in 5 innings and gives up 3 hits and 1 run and something like some type of gets the win. Like I see that, but for GPP, like it's hard for me to think in his first start that he pitches more than 90 pitches.
So one of the things the bat has is the projected pitch count, and he has the lowest projected pitch count at 80 right now.
Oh, so his projection right now in the bat is based on 80 pitches.
Yeah.
Even if you give him 90 pitches, he still doesn't like get bumped up all that much. Let's say I moved his projection from 19 to 21. Like, okay, now it's still Quintana and Schurzer are still better point per dollar plays, still, even with an extra 2 points.
Well, rostering Lamet is almost kind of a bet against Schurzer also, right? It's just like if Schurzer gets roughed around a little bit and Lamet puts up 20 and Schurzer puts up 12, you know.
Yeah, sure.
He did his job. Like he's not going to break the slate. It gives you a little bit different shuffle as far as the hitters as well too. But yeah, I'm not sure if I'm going to get there. I understand why somebody roster him, but I think you're kind of sort of begging. You're begging for 5 innings, which he can get. You know, and he's definitely flashed some upside over the years. He's had games where he's thrown 10 strikeouts. Like that's happened before. I'm pretty sure. I feel like that's happened where he's had double-digit K games, but probably not in his first game back. Anything else to say as far as the pitchers before we talk about just teams, stacks, things like that?
No, I'm pretty good.
All right. Do you want to say hello once again? The chat, do like and subscribe. Basketball running a promo for I know it's not big. We did this a couple. You guys missed it for baseball. We had a 5-day, $5 deal. We're running it back with basketball. I see you tweeting about basketball. You're out, Wonder.
I'm out. I'm out. I'm woohoo. I'm gone. Maybe the playoffs. Maybe I'll play some playoff slates.
You're supposed to embrace if you know what you're doing, if you're on top of stuff, you should have an advantage, when all the shenanigans and all the nonsense is going down. So in theory, you're supposed to like it, but as content creators.
No, but I don't care about content. I don't embrace variance with NBA. I don't want to embrace ulcers also.
I'm not looking forward. I think I have a ticket to the dunk tonight on FanDuel, and I'm like, oh, do I even want to play?
Tonight's slate must be nuts. But isn't it like 12 games or something?
It's a bunch of games, a bunch of teams in the back-to-back. The Clippers are involved. And we still have like a month left. Oh, I won't go on a rant. But hey, what will help you guys out? You get one Andy Means. You get Crunch Time. You get all of our tools here. Lineup HQ, the projections. 5 days, $5. Like that's Blender. It's $1 a day. I don't know if you know.
I did the math. I did it.
You were on Wall Street, so you should know.
Right. Good thing I was able to do that in my head. Yes.
Do you want to summarize the arms before we talk about the bats?
No, I just summarized the arms. Let's stop talking about arms. Let's start talking about bats.
Okay, so how do I get different? Stevenson leading off today, I think is pretty interesting for Washington. A little bit of pop, a little bit of wheels. Carlos Martinez, I'm pretty sure Carlos Martinez historically is a guy you can run on. And they don't have Yachty back there either. I don't know, as far as the combination. That's another thing we have here as one of our tools, as far as like how easy the combination platter, what do they call the battery? There you go. As far as the pitcher and the catcher, how easy they are to steal against. I want to check that as far as Carlos Martinez, because I'm pretty sure he is vulnerable to the stolen base, but he's an interesting cheapie, just kind of make things work. Soto obviously in the DL, so that's how he's getting his opportunity. I like Turner, I like Bell, just Schwarber versus Carlos Martinez as well. Washington's one of the more appealing teams if you're going away from cores that I'm looking at. What say you?
Well, I think the chalk team away from cores is the Angels against Faulty. I mean, if we just take a look at just our own ownership projections, like if we take a look at all the players that are 20% owned and above, so over 20, well, even 19, let's throw in 18 just because it cuts off. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Houston players, Astros, above 18%. We got 1, 2 Colorado players over that number. We got 1 Minnesota player over that number. And then we got 1, 2, 3, 4 Angels over that number. So this this Trout, Ohtani, Fletcher, Upton type of stack, like that will be almost as chalky as the Astros stack. So if you think that like, oh, I'm going to get sneaky and play the Angels, like, I'm sorry, like that they're going to be owned too. Everything else is contrarian. So to me, like if you're playing Schurzer, then get off of either the Angels or the Astros. If you're not playing Schurzer, okay, now we can start talking about still playing some of these chalk bats. But to me, I'm much more likely to not play either of them. Maybe in my 5 lineups, I don't play. Maybe I play the Angels as like a 3-man. Maybe I play the Astros as a 3-man in some other type of stack. But I like San Diego. Like I like San Diego over Washington.
Who do you like in San Diego? Well, we don't have the lineup out just yet. You can assume. Well,
right. I'm going by the projected lineup. Right. We don't have a project. I'm not now. They're going to be low owned. Tatis is back in the lineup. If Tatis and Machado were back in the lineup, they're 5,100 and 5,300. Now, obviously, any lineup that has Tatis and Machado in it most likely doesn't have cores, right? Most likely doesn't have Trout. Like I'm trying to see what type of lineups I could build that look like those lineups, but just have different players in it. And less people are going to play Tatis and Machado. I mean, when you have Story and Bregman so owned, well, what positions are they at? Shortstop and third base. So it's like Tatis and Machado are I have to think. Let's go to our ownership projections. I'm going to guess that they're under 10% owned. Tatis 14.
I would assume so as well. They're going to be low.
12, right? But for a 5-game slate, that's pretty low. So like I'm looking towards that. And obviously the Minnesota side, based on projections that would against Montes, like I said before, I think that's a good spot. I think that's going to be underowned. Maybe I play Buxton in a lineup just for, craps and giggles. 6,100 for Byron Buxton. And who's going to do it? He's 3% projected owned.
He's really good though.
But if you understand the thinking is that here's how you practice this. You build the chalk lineup. Build a lineup with Schurzer, Quintana, an Astro stack, and like Mike Trout or Ohtani or something like you could build that lineup. Well, that's going to be stone cold chalk type of lineup. Now just keep the pitchers and go, well, instead of playing Trout, now you can play Tatis instead of Story, Bregman, you're playing Machado, like make the lineup with the same priced players. So instead of playing Trout, you're playing Byron Buxton. It sounds stupid because it probably is, but it's going to be different. So what does that chalk lineup look like? And how do I make it look exactly the same, just with a different team? Because you know that those players are going to be wildly underowned because they're the same price as the guys that are going to be 30% owned.
I pulled up Chas McCormick's Fangraphs page, 26 years old. Doesn't look like much of a hitter. He's got some speed though. The bat X projects him for a WRC plus of 82. How that works is 100 means you're an average player. You're an average baseball player. And if you're 82, that means you're 18% worse than the average player. But he's in Coors Field, and he also has exhibited some speed. And, when you're in Coors Field, on the road is a really good shot of you getting those 5 ABs. I'm not sure of like the pinch hit hook capabilities here in this game. I'm not sure how many players Houston has available because Straw probably not available. And I'm not sure if they have guys on an alternative site that are traveling with. Couldn't tell you. But there's a little bit of pop, a little bit of speed in the minors, and he's super, super cheap. We talked about 3K on FanDuel. I think he's 3K basically on DK as well. If you want to make things work, I'm not here to pretend I know who Chas McCormick is, but it looks like at least he's got some speed, and like it's the best ballpark, one of the best ballparks in all of baseball for triples. So you get it in one of those alleys and forget it. He's at third base. So I don't know.
Elvis Andrews has a minus. Dean, Elvis Andrews has a -6 WRC plus. What does that mean? How is that possible?
He's been so bad this year. I don't know what -6 means. I remember Lewis Brinson had like a 10 or something like that last year.
Nobody has a minus. How is that possible?
Is he hitting them like, I don't know how it works. I just know like the base concept.
Right. The base is 100 and 0 means that you're 100% worse than the average. He's negative
108% worse. I don't know.
How can you be worse than 100% of the average hitter?
You can give 110% and effort. So I guess you can be 110% worse. I don't know, man. I don't know how that works.
Does -6 means that he's not only worse than having him on your team as an average player, he's effectively acting as the 10th batter for the opposing team.
Yeah, I don't. Maybe he's like not a good locker room guy. Also, maybe that's
that gets
factored
put
in.
into that.
I don't think so. I have no idea. We have some questions coming through in chat. Do like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Thanks for hanging out with us. We know it's pretty quiet, because it's Wednesday afternoon, and some people are playing hooky at work, according to Blender. Is that what's going on?
They're in their bathroom listening to Crunch Time.
There you go. Well, Crunch Time's on layaway. It's coming up next. One, Dave Potts, cheese is good. And we talking to you guys through the slate that's coming up, and also if you guys are paying members, he's going to touch on the night slate as well too. And well, we were considering talking about the night slate, but the main thing of the night slate is like, well, does Toronto and Boston play? I don't know. Well, that really matters because that's the most appealing game. Besides that game, I think the warmest temperature game is 48 degrees in New York. So yeah, I can't wait for like hot baseball games. That'll be fun for sure. But we're all dealing with the same slate, the same deal. Devin has shuffled some questions my way. Do you expect Schurzer to be low owned with Colorado on the slate? No, we don't do that. We don't. FanDuel probably a little trickier, but you can still make it work. And Coors isn't like amazing Coors today. It's not a perfect Coors.
Yeah, but it'll
slate.
still be only for a 5-game slate. It's going to be the most. Astros are going to be the chalkiest players on the slate.
Is Quintana likely to be chalkier than Maeda? I assume that's a DK specific question. If you guys are asking questions, specify for tournament, specify what site you're playing on. That matters, but that has to be, I assume, that's got to be a DK question because nobody's really playing Quintana on FanDuel. We talked about why. Is that what we have as far as our projections right now? Is Quintana currently projected to be higher in the Maeda?
About the same.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Quintana is going to end up being higher owned. People attack the Rangers more often than not. I mean, we have Maeda at 30 and Quintana at 28, but we also have Lamet at 51, and I don't see Lamet being 51% owned.
I don't agree with that number. Yeah,
right. So
I hope he's 51%.
I think Lamet ends up being 20%, and all that ownership goes to kind of more towards Quintana. I think Quintana ends up being 40, Maeda being 34, and Lamet being 20, or like something like that. Montes being 10, and then everyone else is kind of like in the single digits.
Trying to see if we have anything interesting as far as lineups, but not really. We're still winning on San Diego. Vogelbach back in the lineup there for Milwaukee today in the 2-hole. He's always vulnerable to the pinch hit. He's always vulnerable to get double swapped out. He's not a great defensive player too, so they'll move him. Well, who did they have? Kirsten Hira? They had Hira, I think, playing at first base last night. And it looks like he's getting the day off. No Keston Hira. He's also one of those guys off to a brutal start, striking out a bunch too for Milwaukee. That's why that Milwaukee lineup looks a little bit funky. How about Joey Gallo and his ridiculous power? When he's not striking out, he can hit the ball like 600 feet.
I mean,
people are going to roster,
it's a leverage play. It's a leverage play on Quintana. I said you can play the Rangers as a leverage play against Chalky Quintana. It's just that the pricing is just. Do you want to pay $22,000 for a 5-man Rangers stack? I don't. Well,
Gallo's 3K in FanDuel, and I imagine. Well, I've been playing a lot of Gallo on FanDuel because he's every single night he seems underpriced, but they're not.
Then you see why.
Well, I mean, he's happy to take a walk, and pitchers are afraid of him sometimes, and there's nothing around him. And if you believe in the philosophy of like protection in the lineup, which delves in the whole other conversation, but he doesn't really have protection in the lineup, right? Either in front of him or behind him, however you want to work that. And it's lefty on lefty, and I guess when you're pumping out 100 lineups, you're not putting anything about lefty on lefty. You're just playing lineups. But when I'm hand building stuff, again, I have this sort of cash game brain, which I have to embrace, to get away from in tournaments. But it's probably not going to be a lefty coming out of the pen. It's probably going to be some righty, and then Gallo can absolutely pummel him and get his homer in 6th inning. And like, I can't roster that guy because a lefty on lefty. Is that something that's in your brain? It's probably not.
It's not. No, it means their ownership gets lowered for no reason. Yes, it's a worse matchup, but not as worse as what the ownership reflects it as. Like if it was the difference between a guy is 15% owned and it's lefty on lefty and he's 12% owned, like that would be normal. But it's like 2% owned because no one wants to play Bryce Harper against the lefty. It's like I'll play Bryce Harper against a lefty for 2% owned, especially in my stacks. Like if it's in part of the stack, at that point I don't even care because what ends up happening is a lot of people you'll see they'll go, I'm going to play the Dodgers righties against the lefty and then leave out Corey Seager, and it's like you're stacking the Dodgers, so so why are you leaving? I just want to play the righty. Like
Well,
Well, that's
also,
what other
if your
people are
stack's
gonna do.
doing well, like if your stack's doing well, theoretically, the pitcher's going to get knocked out early. So he's going to see probably the opposite hand coming. There's more righties than there are lefties. I mean, I look at like teams' bullpen and I look at the usage. That stuff's important to me for certain hitters, especially when I'm like, well, this guy might get pinch hit for. And what was it yesterday? Who was the players on Philly? The opposing team was at San Fran. It's like 5 lefties in the bullpen. And I'm like, oh, I can't play Miller and I can't play this guy and Mike Hash. And then Miller, of course, because I'm like, oh, he's a pinch hit risk. And Matt Joyce is another one. If a lefty comes in, they have 5 lefties. They're going to bring a lefty in. And they did, and I think they still didn't pinch hit for him, but whatever. You're playing percentages all the time. For what it's worth, we have, I think, 2 lefties in that pen there for the Angels. Alex Claudio and Tony Watson.
But they're not taking Joey Gallo out. Who cares?
No. I'm just saying, we're just on the conversation. Of course, they're not taking Gallo out. That's not happening. Yeah. Any more questions? I think Devin's been throwing some my way. Yeah, here we go. Let's see. Oh, somebody is saying they're complimenting my hosting abilities today. I'm all over the place, and it's out of my element. I like having just sort of, let's just have a conversation about the slate. Like, here's game by game. Like, oh, I like these 4 hitters that are batting 1 through 4, and I like these. Yeah, you could play these 4 guys in a tournament. Sure. Or you could also play the pitcher. How is that helpful if you say that about every single player and every single team? I feel like you kind of like
but Dean, that if you started with let's start position by position, I'd start throwing stuff at the camera.
Well, yeah, I've learned my lesson. No, I think just having a conversation is more useful is kind of the point I'm making. And, and I understand the game by game conversation. I understand why people do that too. And I've done that in the past as well. But a lot of it just comes down to, yeah, I guess you can play those 4. I guess you could, the 1 through 4 guys that are the best hitters, you can play those guys. And if you want to be different, you can play the 7, 8, 9. So I can play anybody I want. Okay. How is this helpful?
All I'm doing is giving you choices, but the thing is, you have to make one of these choices. And here, I'm giving you, here's some good choices. Which one is the best? Who knows? We don't know what's going to happen in baseball today. We're more likely to know what your opponents are going to do, what the field is going to do. And if you're going to play large field GPPs, you're going to get different. So how do you get different? Well, there may be 5 different ways to get different. Who knows which way is going to be the best way? Choose one of them, but it's still better than me coming. If I came out and said, oh, you know what, play Schurzer, play Quintana, play a 4-man Astro stack, play one of the Rockies and play 3 Angels. Like fine. If you want to play double up, sure, go do
that's
that.
cash stuff. Yeah.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. Like, to me, that's not helpful. That's what everyone's going to do. That's going to be the chalk lineup. So now you have to decide how to be different from that. And now there could be 12 different ways to be different.
Do you like
the Padres lineup finally? Thank God.
What do we have? Anything interesting?
Well, Machado and Tatis are back. So
they got to
be
back, right?
About.
Yeah. I like the Nat stack, by the way, and I'm not somebody that like obsesses over stacks, and I'm more of like 3-3-2, like that kind of thing. I know you have your thoughts on that, and
for this slate, it's fine. It's a 5-game slate. Do it, okay? You're not going to hear anything. You want to play your 1-1-1-1-1-1-1-1-1-1 stack?
I don't do that. Well, the other part of it, when you have like a 14 or 15 game slate, and like you talk about, that raises the possibility of one team putting up 15 runs and that team facing, Williams' studio on the mound, which the equivalent of, which is amazing. I don't know if you caught that video, throwing his 46 or 56 mile an hour. I don't want to say fastball. He threw a baseball. He had a 1-2-3 inning too. But yeah, it's just amazing when your stack is facing like the backup shortstop. It's incredible.
Well, Herman Perez actually pitches pretty well. You see, he throws that knuckle curve. He did better than the pitchers on those 2 games that he pitched.
I would do that more often, by the way, if I was a manager and like my team's getting ball up, we're down by 8 runs or 7 runs or 6 runs, and the team has fun with it. That's like a fun way to like take in a loss, and you're not coming back anyway. You're down by 7 in the 9th. Let's save the bullpen. It's a long season. Like, why don't they do that more often? I think managers are starting to embrace that more. And we saw that with like a 7-run lead, which you never used to see. It used to be like, It's got to be 12 or 13 or 14. And one of the unwritten rules, if I'm up by 13, why can't I throw out my shortstop? I'm up by 13. I don't want to burn my bullpen. I want my shortstop.
That's what it should be. And you should be able to bunt and steal on them also.
Yeah. I mean, you can, sure, but that's Bush League, but
it's capitalism.
You go base to base on that, I suppose. We're going to step aside for crunch time in just a minute or so. But Maeda or Montas over Quintana as your DK SP2. Ideally, I want to have Maeda or Montas. I don't know how much it hits my bats because Scherzer's my 1.
I think
but
Quintana,
tackle that question.
But point per dollar, Quintana is 1. Maeda's 2, and Montes is 3. But I mean, I'm
Yeah.
just looking at the projections. So what else am I supposed to tell you?
Well, I mean, projections for hitters is a whole other conversation. I know Cheese has his thoughts. You have your thoughts too, and the variance, like just the.
We're talking about pitchers. I just ranked pitchers.
No, but you talked about point per dollar for pitchers, and theoretically, what you're saying is now all of a sudden you have this money to spend on for these hitters. But like the other day, I had a lineup. It was a half Angel stack and like half Cardinals, and it crushed. It was a great lineup, like 207 or something like that on FanDuel, and I had 2 zeros. You know what my 2 zeros were from? It was from Ohtani and Trout. So like everybody's floor is 0. That's just and like Upton homered. I think Pujols stole base, and the other my St. Louis stack did pretty well. But like the point is like everybody's got a 0 floor. And even if you have more funds, this isn't basketball. You don't have more funds to delegate to your hitters. There's no guarantee. Andrew Stevenson could be the absolute best player on the slate, raw points. Like an absolutely
Chas McCormick could be.
Yeah, and it's not wild.
We've known him for so long. Our good friend Chaz.
Yeah, well, we were pronouncing his name correctly, which is a start, I suppose. That's good for us. But you have any final thoughts as far as this slate as we're winding down? We're stepping aside. Crunch time on layaway. Dave Potts, cheese is good. The best in the business is going to steer you guys through. And also, he's going to touch on the night slate as well. Do hit that like button, subscribe, turn on notifications. Give me your final thoughts. Any bold proclamations, which is something I know you love doing. Give me somebody that's going to homer. You love that nonsense.
Yeah, I just look at the projections and give it whatever has the highest home run projection, right? I don't think the weather is going to scare off enough people from Coors. So I think Coors is going to end up with the ownership that we're expecting it to be. And so like, I'm just going to tell you what I'm going to tell you, I'm going to do in my 5 lineups, which I'm going to do right after the show. I'm not even sure if I can play if I'm going to play a one-off in Coors, maybe I play a Colorado guy. I think avoiding Correa and Bregman at those positions. I think I'm more likely to play an outfield one-off, like a Brantley at 5K. I don't know.
You're not supposed to do that if the weather is up in the air. If it's all clear and good to go.
Yeah, but maybe the weather, it's not going to scare people. I'm not doing it because I think it's going to be postponed. I'm doing it because I think it's just going to be a 2-1 game type of game.
Okay.
So maybe I still play someone from that. Maybe you're right. Maybe I shouldn't play anyone from that. You convinced me. I'm playing no one from Coors. That's the overall. I'm playing no one from Coors. Let's wait for this game to be 12-10 and all my lineups come in last place.
I'll tell you what, we're not weathermen. We don't play one on TV or the interwebs. Kevin Roth, chief meteorologist, he is, and he's going to take you guys all the way up to lock with Dave Potts. Cheese is good with crunch time, so he'll give you the most up-to-date update as far as the weather there in Colorado. We do have to go. Crunch time's knocking on the door. That was Blender. That was Blender HD. Hope you all enjoyed that. Do hit the like button, subscribe. That was baseball as well too. I was Dean. Good luck today. We're out of here. Holler.